Bear Independent Brief, 5 December 25, brought to you by the creator of the universe, the wonderful people over on Patreon, the economic engine of the Bear Nation, and of course, refugemedical.com. We'll do the written brief first, and then national intel, which is intel that y'all have sent in to me, intel@bearindependent.com. Also, I've got a lot of communication regarding GATE, and as a result, we'll be doing a standalone video on that. So thank you to everybody who wrote in about that. European states are reportedly considering what one economist describes as the nuclear option, dumping trillion in U.S. debt. If Donald Trump strikes a deal with Russia that compromises European security. Yeah, they compromised their own European security. Russia was the largest supplier of natural gas to the continent of Europe in the first place. They had no military spending. They're more concerned about universal basic income and light socialism and arresting people for hate speech than they are fighting the Russians. So that's a them problem. Now, the United States having debt that can be dumped in the first place is an us problem. The threat comes as peace talks between U.S. and Ukrainian officials continued in Miami over the weekend, with European leaders deeply concerned about what concessions might be offered to Vladimir Putin. You know, it's a sad state of affairs when you don't have enough horsepower to be involved in conversations that directly affect your own security. That's a them problem. The countermeasure being discussed would involve a rapid sell-off of European-held U.S. Treasury securities, not secretaries, potentially triggering a cascade of economic disasters, a crash in the dollar's value, a liquidity crisis across the banking system, and a massive spike in borrowing costs that would lock the American financial sector into paralysis more severe than the 2008 crisis. A leading European economist told the Wall Street Journal that the plan represents, quote, potential financial whiplash that could hit the U.S. harder than any external shock in modern history, end quote. Well, if I was president for a day and our allies, air quote, did that, okay, well, that's an incredibly unfriendly thing to do. That's the type of maneuver that China would pull. Which makes me think, why are the Europeans considering this in the first place? But also, you want to behave like that? You got it, Europe. We're done. Good luck defending yourself against the Russians. Who's, by the way, the GDP, gross domestic product of Italy, is greater than Russia. Russia spans how many time zones? I know the Soviet Union was 11 time zones. So let's just call it 7 now. I believe it's 7. And you guys, all of Europe, can't mount an appropriate defense against Russia. How many times are you going to do this? World War I, saved your ass. World War II, saved your ass. Now, World War III looming. You want to, okay, FAFO, homie. This is already a vulnerable moment for the U.S. economy. Yeah, you could say that. Treasury buybacks targeting up to $500 million in inflation-protected securities may be a signal of stress in the bond market, where demand has weakened substantially since April. Ray Dalio, author of the book Principles, dramatically warned that America faces, quote, an economic heart attack unless the federal deficit drops from roughly 6% to 3% GDP within 3 years. That'll happen. With total debt approaching $40 trillion and the government spending 40% more than it takes in, the fiscal situation has reached critical mass. Dalio explained that debt service payments act like plaque in the artery squeezing away buying power. Well, that makes a lot of sense because arteries aren't airways. I was about to verbally punch Dalio in the face. Let's try that again. Dalio explains that debt service payments act like plaque in the artery squeezing away buying power, saying the government must sell $12 trillion in debt, including $9 trillion in maturing obligations, $1 trillion in interest payments. Okay, so a billion is 1,000 million. A trillion is a million million. Because 1,000 times 1,000 is a million. So a trillion is $1 million. These are numbers, and it's one of the, we can thank the dumbing down of American society for this. These are numbers that most people simply cannot comprehend when it comes to the scale, the volume of money that we're talking about here. $1 trillion in interest payments and $2 trillion in new borrowing. Most crucially for the bond market, foreign investors have been pulling back, with some favoring AAA corporate bonds from companies like Johnson & Johnson for better returns, despite treasuries traditionally being viewed as safer options. Johnson & Johnson, the old clot shot. Yeah. It is my belief, not feeling, belief based upon the data, there will be no meaningful reform before everything everywhere all at once. And our ability to vote our way out of and legislate our way out of the current problems that we have. The last great hope there was November 2024. And it turns out, love him, hate him, Donald J. Trump does not appear to be the man for the job. That's my personal assessment. I believe he's trying, but I also believe he's compromised. We'll just leave that there. You see the bullshit narrative they're pushing on the J6 pipe bomber. Oh, it's totally not the lady from the intel community. It's this random black guy. Okay, sure. That's super believable. Meanwhile, the real economy continues showing strain as U.S. manufacturing contracted for the 9th straight month in November, with the Institute for Supply Management's manufacturing PMI dropping from 48.2 to 48.7, dropping to 48.2 from 48.7 in October. The Federal Reserve's Beige Book reported that overall consumer spending declined further by mid-November, noting that, quote, tariffs and tariff uncertainty remain a headwind. The forward-looking new order index decreased from 47.4 to 47.4, having contracted in 9 of the last 10 months. Factory employment declined for the 10th consecutive month as manufacturers engaged in what ISM described as, quote, accelerating staff reductions due to uncertain near and midterm demand, end quote. Even the record Black Friday sales figures actually mask a troubling reality about the state of the economy. Rick Newman of the Pinpoint Press noted that after adjusting for higher prices, maybe it's a real increase of just 1% or so, which is not that much of an increase. Claudia Lombama, a national consumer expert, confirmed that, quote, consumers have bought fewer items this holiday season, but the average selling prices are higher. Essentially, the record spending figures are less a sign of economic health and more an indication of how much more Americans must pay just to maintain their standard of living. Do the things, Bear Nation. I don't believe that most people truly understand how bad it can get or will get. We're talking about this on the Patreon Thursday live stream last night. One facet, just one, we'll take the 1 to 200 known Haqqani network cells, Al-Qaeda, 12-man cells, known already to be inside the United States. Incredibly well trained. We're not talking about a bunch of, your average jihadis. I will refrain from racial slurs here. talking 8 to 12 man teams, incredibly well trained, explosives, small arms, V-beds, vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices, etc. And you think, well, yeah, it'd be terrible. I'm going to shoot a bunch of people up and kill a bunch of people. One facet of their modus operandi already is they're not going to just kill you. They're going to take you hostage and a whole bunch of other hostages, including your family. And they're going to brutally R-word, your family, your wife and your children in front of you. And then slowly kill them. And then maybe, hopefully, kill you. There are 4,000 known confirmed cells in the United States of America. There's 3,000 counties. The more realistic number, because that 4,000 number is an older number, 18 to 24 months ago, the more realistic number is honestly about 10,000. It's about 3 per county. And that's just one facet of everything everywhere all at once. And I think a lot of people are still playing at preparedness. And a lot of people took their foot off the accelerator when DJT got reelected. Now, I'm still only 20% certain that this comes to pass by 2027. But I'm 80% certain that if it does, it will go down the way that I have described innumerable times here on this channel, especially over the last few months. So if you have no conviction to prepare, or only to prepare moderately, it's fine. You do you. I'm a terrible apologist. Just understand, on this side of the camera, the afterburners are on, baby. We have exceeded Mach 2 when it comes to preparedness. I've been converting fiat currency into hard assets nonstop. Checking and rechecking systems, augmenting and improving existing systems, augmenting and improving existing plans. Because, for the last, really since World War II, for Americans, the wars have been over there. We forget how many wars have been fought here, and how much conflict has been fought here. People have gotten incredibly soft. I look at, I'm ad-libbing now. I'm completely off script. We'll get to the bonus intel here in a minute, but I look at these just stupid gun community posts on Instagram and on X and all these gun tuber videos. And it's disgusting to me how clean their weapons are. You don't need to know how to shoot. You need to know how to fight. And shooting's important, but it's 1% of fighting. 1%. Oh, my Second Amendment. Oh, Bear, you have the... Shut up. Take your ego and bravado and shove it up your ass. Because you'll get acted upon. Because the enemy can also shoot. But they can move, and they can communicate, and they can sustain. And they've been here a long time. And they've been training their whole lives for this. And it's still a game to way too many people here in America. Even if they're aware of it, it's still a game. Versus my mindset. If you threaten my family, I will wear your spine as a necklace. Those are two very different mindsets. So I encourage you strongly to take it seriously, deadly seriously. Bonus intel at BearIndependent.com. Anyways, I've been using UAVs for a few years now, initially as a force multiplier for our ranch hand work on ranches along the Texas border. It's very effective in helping us cover large areas of ranches and locating, quote, varmints. Fast forward, and I wanted to learn more about the platforms, as I know it's a double-edged sword, used for both good and nefarious purposes. So I wanted to get a license. As a Part 107, I enrolled in a 9-month course, boot camp, UAV companies. Courses I took were instructed by individuals, current military intelligence officers. They also have master's and doctorate degrees in UAS, unmanned aerial systems. I taught the regular FAA regulations as well as instructed a lot of military platforms being developed and used. A lot of the platforms are and have already moved to a total AI control, meaning that when a potential threat is noticed, the drone is dispatched and determines friend or foe and makes its own determination whether to attack. This is completely without human verification, and the swarm technology is astounding. Like I said, I wanted to learn about these systems so to understand how to deal with them as they progress. It seems that colleges and institutions that are teaching the longer courses are definitely creating a database of remote pilots as well as AI systems to fill any voids. The platform is becoming more and more sophisticated that we won't know if one is right next to you, as they are small enough to look like dragonflies. And also bladeless drones that use the same type of air movement as Dyson fans, so you won't necessarily hear the large ones. Pastor Joe Fox, Viking Preparedness, contemplate the unthinkable. Especially with FPV drones. If there's a drone operator somewhere. The first step here is don't be where it is. Cost-benefit analysis, juice versus squeeze. I know a lot of people, again, they're like, oh, you don't understand, Bear. I live in the city. I just can't. No, you can. You're suffering from a mindset of I just can't. You won't, not you can't. Perhaps you're more biblically inclined. 87 times in the story about the people in this book. 87 times. Famine, plague, and disease. You think famine, you think, it's okay, got it. You know, there won't be any Cheerios at the grocery store. King Hezekiah tore his garments because the people of Shomeron were eating their own children. Yeah, because they had no food. That's biblical. Oh, where was that? In the cities. I work for a company called nVent. Look them up. We're crazy busy here in eastern Georgia. We build power control centers and H2O pump stations for data centers. So busy, we just started a second shift. What that means is we have doubled our production. Instead of running 60-man crews per 10-hour shift, going to 2 10-hour shifts, 1 a.m., 1 p.m. Instead of 10-hour shifts 4 days a week, we were told we're going to 5 days a week starting this December. nVent builds metal building enclosures, 483 phase and DC power backup for all this type of infrastructure. We have no shortage of getting steel for these buildings. We have no problem getting copper wire. Commercial HVAC building mounted units, no problem. Aluminum for cable tray, no problem. Hundreds of feet of 4-hour copper for the purpose of internal lighting protection, no problem. Some do have crazy security built into them, i.e. access card entry only, cameras pre-wired in and out of certain units. I hear rumors the electrical engineers are so overworked that they just quit. So we are always scrutinizing electrical drawings for errors. Most buildings themselves are 400 amps alternating current. Bear with your past work background, you know the cost involved in one building. They price out at $750K to $1.5 million per building. My shift completes 2, sometimes 3 units a week. Most drawings have destinations on them: Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Texas. Next, I know you already know about how if the grid goes down, so does the water utilities, but I have some first-hand experience in this and I thought I would share. I work at a water utility in Southern California. During the Eaton and Palisades fires in January, SoCal Edison was performing public safety power shutoffs. The operations center for the water utility I work at was in one of those power shutoff areas, as was a decent chunk of the surrounding area. The outage lasted 2.5 to 3 days. I can't quite remember. We completely burned through the diesel fuel in the tanks of both of our on-site large portable generators within the first 24 hours. I'll say again, the average municipality has 36 hours of backup for water. That comes from FEMA, that comes from DOE, and that also comes from my personal experience with grindstoneministries.com. Our on-site diesel reserve was basically useless. We only had 500 gallons stored in bulk tank, and each generator held 300 gallons. Naturally, we reached out to our local fuel distributor to try and get fuel delivered. Turns out every single business in the area had the same idea. Further complicating things, the local fuel distribution center was within the power outage area as well and was unable to run their equipment. I've heard this somewhere before. Long story short, since it was a relatively localized outage and only lasted 3-ish days, we managed to scrape by. But if this was widespread, say all of Southern California, and longer term, like anything over 10 days, the water infrastructure would absolutely all be shut down. While most water utilities do have a contingency plan on paper for these eventualities, they will not be sufficient if the problem is widespread and the grid shutdown outlasts their on-hand fuel reserves. Yup. Next, the trend continues. I'm an aviation maintenance tech that works primarily corporate executive aviation. The company I work for is not Jetstream, but quick airline update before digging deep. Last week, Airbus grounded its entire fleet for an emergency flight computer software update. Airbus says, quote, intense solar radiation caused data inside the computers to corrupt, which could have affected flight controls. The action from Airbus comes after a JetBlue A320 traveling from Mexico to New Jersey made an emergency landing in October after experiencing a flight control problem, leaving several passengers injured. What's crazy is I talked to the owner of an Airbus yesterday on the telephone who said, that's not what's going on here. Say it with me, boys and gerbils. There is a persistent and ongoing zero-day exploit that affects everything that touches the internet to the highest echelons of American society. Oh, including planes? Yeah, do they touch the internet? Yes, they do. Get it through your heads, please, my brothers and sisters. That's why Airbuses are grounded. It has nothing to do with solar radiation. Airline companies often have layoffs and reductions in personnel this time of year. However, corporate aviation does not. Billionaires and Fortune 500 companies tend to keep aircraft and technicians. As of today, 12/1, I heard of a major player completely dismantling flight departments, as in show up to work Monday and everyone is fired. From director down to the guy mopping the hangar floors. Companies that I've heard of just today, CSX and Carnival Cruise. There are also numerous operators like Solaris and ExecuJet. These companies don't directly own the plane, just manage it, much like property manager. I know 2 guys got a phone call, said they are no longer needed. Owner will be offloading the aircraft ASAP. This is a major indication. CSX does not just drop planes. They see something in the books and they are terrified. I don't know why people continue to fly. I don't get it. I talked to another person on the phone within the last month who said the only flights that they will get on are military flights because it's incredibly hard to co-opt a military flight. You know, encrypted communications and blah, blah, blah. They said these commercial planes, no. Plus the lack of maintenance. They keep falling out of the sky. Next, violent crimes are up 60% in northern Arizona. Many gang members are moving from California to Arizona, landing in Phoenix, but traveling to different parts of the state. Adult system is overwhelmed. Folks are being sent to jail instead of probation because there aren't enough officers. Call for backup took police 2 hours to support in town. Officers are being told to carry off duty and not engage in arguments as people are shooting first, asking questions later. Well, they should be carrying off duty anyway. I'm going to resist the urge to scream. Look at the indicators. Take them seriously. Share this show with somebody you love. Either they've never watched the Bear Show before, either they don't like me. I don't care. It's for the preservation of life. People need to understand the volume and the scope and the scale of the indicators, the problems, the direction we're headed. The population has had zero communication of this issue from local government. Purple Arizona might not do so well in the coming unpleasantries, especially if occupied by our cartel neighbors. I agree with that. Let's see. Yes, I'm tracking on this. Copied from a local news article. Residents of Campbell County will be without weather warnings and other mass notifications after the county system was damaged in a cybersecurity event. According to Campbell County Public Safety, the Code Red emergency notification system was the target of an organized cyber criminal group which damaged the platform and may have removed subscriber data from the system. Yeah, like login data. Now, CCPS is issuing new information about what happened and what the next steps are. For starters, the Code Red platform has been permanently decommissioned and will not be restored because it can't be recovered. Although law enforcement is investigating, public safety is also asking residents to be proactive and make sure to change any passwords that might have been reused with the Code Red platform. That is the show for today. If you have intel you would like to share with the Bear Nation, intel@bearindependent.com is your email address, or go to bearindependent.com and use the contact us form. Somebody called yesterday and was like, hey, I can't find a link to Bear's Patreon channel. www.bearindependent.com. It's right there. You'll find it there. I have no fear of what's coming. I want to be honest with you about that, because we're commanded to fear nothing but the Lord our God. I have a lot of concern, and I have a lot of concern, frankly, for y'all. I don't think enough people, I don't believe we have reached the critical mass of people taking this seriously enough in order to be able to affect positive change when this happens. It is vital that not only you get engaged, you get as many people around you as engaged as possible. If a house does not receive you, shake the dust off your feet and move on to the next one. But keep looking for houses to receive you. It's going to get biblical. I think we're heading into the sixth judgment, setting the conditions for what will be, at some point later down the road, actual end times Book of Revelation stuff. And I think the United States of America as we know it does not exist in the Book of Revelation. And I'm not saying we are in biblical end times yet. I believe we're heading into the sixth biblical judgment. And even if we weren't, all the intel indicators point towards it's going to get screwy in epic proportion, potentially very quickly. Do the things. If you don't know what to do, Bear Independent YouTube channel, Prepper Classroom playlist. It's about 5 years old, but all the information in there is good. It all tracks, and it's broken down Barney style. What to do, how to do it. Great for a reminder for people who have been in the game for a minute, and great for people who are brand new. That's the show, y'all. Thank you to the patrons for supporting what we do here. Economic engine of the Bear Nation. Couldn't and wouldn't do it without you. Shout out to everybody who supports refugemedical.com. Best first aid kits on planet Earth. The whole point of which is to get you home again. Preservation of life. Whether that's an individual first aid kit, a stomp bag, a belt line kit for your war belt or your officer's duty belt, a stomp bag, a field hospital, everything in between. It's the end of the year coming up on, so if you have an HSA or FSA, make sure you use it before you lose it. And holiday season coming up, so if you can, if you do, consider giving the gift of life, something that'll actually matter, because one real first aid kit costs less than one bouquet of flowers for a funeral. And I don't want that for you. I don't want that for me. That's why Refuge exists. I was my own first customer. And here we are on 4 continents with all branches of the U.S. Armed Forces and 162 lives saved to date. Thank you. I appreciate y'all. And I'll see y'all when I see you.